There we are. Hi, this is Jim Cranston from 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com, the podcast and website about reimagining your life. Thanks for joining me today to talk about focusing on what matters to you. So let's get started. If you like what you hear today, please leave a like, tell your friends, and send me a message. Thanks for joining me tonight to talk about kind of envisioning and constructing the life that matters to you and how to kind of gently ignore some of the things that other people may say to you. But before we get going on the main topic, for all my Catholic and Christian friends, I'd like to wish you a blessed and happy Holy Week and Easter. Also, a number of my friends celebrate Ramadan, which is currently underway and ends, I believe it's April 21st this year. So that's another holiday linked to the lunar cycle. There's a lot of interesting things going on this time of year. So in that spirit, and since I sing with both the Spanish and English choirs, I was brushing up on my Latin. And the best part about Latin is it really hasn't changed much in a few hundred years. So there isn't a lot of vocabulary, or slang to be worried about. But between that and some other church-related technical work I was doing, I got to be, thinking about how much of my day is spent on things that I truly enjoy versus making a living. To be clear, this isn't the first time I've considered this topic, but today's collapse, if you were listening live, you would know, obviously, but this is being broadcast on March 26th in 2024. Today's collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, Maryland. I've driven on that bridge, quite a number of times, and one of my friends works at that location, and he is safe. But it kind of had me revisiting the whole topic of life and making the most of it and just never counting on tomorrow, basically. So it's also worth noting that someone on the ship, which seemed to be in the middle of kind of this electromechanical failure from what I was just reading, obviously at a most unfortunate time, but somebody in the ship had the presence to alert the authorities to immediately close the bridge, which they did both directions, or the death toll might have been much higher. And so that's something just to think about. We talk a lot about setting goals and planning ahead, but sometimes you really have to be ready to just act and make the most of the situation in life. So somebody having the presence of mind in a very stressful situation, obviously they knew it was going to happen. It was very clear at that point. There's some excellent videos showing the whole, basically how the situation played out up to actually contact with the bridge. Even knowing that was coming, could pick up the phone, the radio, whatever he used to get a hold of somebody to immediately issue a mayday and get that bridge closed. So never underestimate what you're able to do, even in difficult situations. But I was reading, and then today's Wall Street Journal came out with, in the personal journal section, interesting story, again talking about retiring. And we've talked about various aspects of this before. This time, it wasn't about how much they had saved, which they had a series of articles on that, which were very interesting. Whether they had under $1 million or under $500,000 or over $5 million. They had a whole range. It was very interesting. But rather, this time it was about single women from various backgrounds. And I may go over the whole article another time. It was actually pretty fascinating. But in common with the other articles on retirement, the attitude of the people made more of a difference in their happiness than the actual dollar amount. And this is a common theme. We've talked about it before. And it's really worth paying attention to, because no matter how much money you have saved or don't have saved, really how you envision it and how you approach it has the biggest impact of whether or not you're going to be happy or dissatisfied with your situation. Of this particular group of people, I think there were 5, as I recall. 1, 2, 3, 4, might have been 4 or 5. Basically, their savings ranged from over $2 million to zero savings at the time of retirement. And probably the most contented one of the bunch was the one who had zero saved. Say what? By retiring early, she was able to still work part-time, and part-time in her case is typically 10 to 20 hours a week. But she could focus on only doing things that she found interesting and or fulfilling. Now, she's been doing this for 8 years. 8 years later, she's traveled much of the world to over 30 countries, has a number, 2 or 3 online businesses, plus does offline work such as house sitting, and has saved over $100,000 in a Vanguard IRA by just managing expenses and watching how she lives. She has no debt. and is making a six-figure income, and she enjoys every day. Wow, right? Just what a change. She had hated her old work situation. She didn't hate the work itself, but she's working overnights and stuff like that. And she decided she was not going to live the rest of her life that way, and so she isn't. She still goes home to see her folks and her family and friends, pretty regularly, but she has a whole new life that she's excited to live and created a number of new career opportunities for herself, including starting a coaching and event business to teach others to do how she did it, and goes through the whole steps of what she did. And also, of course, the biggest thing is overcoming that first step. And it's not just, well, good for her. She did what we were all capable of doing. She looked into her future, didn't like what she saw, made some difficult decisions, and then made some big changes in her life. And this is exactly what we keep talking about. If you do the same thing as everybody else, you'll probably get what everyone else gets. If you want something different, then you'll probably have to do something different. Of course, the double challenge as we get older is that one part of us becomes more risk averse, while the other part becomes less concerned with risk and appearance. Remember the geezer's paradox from a couple of weeks ago. It was the March 5th, 2024 episode. If you don't remember, go back, take a look at it. And the crux of it is, as you get older, chances are you care less about what other people say. And that's not just I don't care about the world. That's a real freedom. And it's something that gives you a real power that you may not have had when you were younger. It's considered by many, if you're progressive as you get older, if you're progressive in any way, as you become more mature, shall we say, right? They kind of look at it askance. It's kind of like, well, that's, you probably should be a little more conservative. You're older now, should be doing more quieter. But I'd kind of argue the other way, that as you get older, that's exactly the time to become more creative in your thinking, because that's when you have the most experience and the most to give to others and to yourself. When the woman who quit her job and recreated her life told her parents, they thought perhaps she'd had like a mental breakdown or some mental issues going on, or something like this is, just completely out of the scope of what we would expect somebody your age to be doing, or to anybody to be retiring to be doing. But little did they realize until later that she had had an epiphany, and most as important probably, at that same time, she also had the will and the determination to make that way her new vision, her new reality. So that's really the most important takeaway that we always come back around to, is that it's not that you can always sit and think of something to do, and thoughts are easy. They say, there's an old business saying that says, good ideas, even great ideas, are a dime a dozen, but actionable ideas and actually taking action on them, that's what has a lot of value. And the same thing here. We can think, I want to do this, I want to do that, but it's actually mustering up the focus and the courage to take those next steps and actually act upon it and move ahead and do it. Actually, one of the people that works with me went through a very similar sort of thing. She had a pretty okay job, and it was paid benefits, and it was going to move forward, but she didn't enjoy it. It was sucking the life out of her. And it wasn't a horrible job, but it just had no interest to her. And so she really completely recreated her life, freed up space in her mind and in her time, that she went and she does, congratulations to her, finished another college degree, and just changed the whole course of her life. And I don't think in her family, probably anybody, when she told them what she was doing, said, oh, that's a great idea. It's probably kind of, oh, you have a good job. Why are you doing this? People are always trying to help you, and they're trying to protect you and keep you safe. But that typically is safe in the eyes of what society thinks is to be expected of somebody. So if you're doing something that has a totally different view on life, just be proud of it, right? You get to define your own happiness, own it, be comfortable with it. Use that to give you the power to move forward. Your homework, always optional, is to think about what you would do to make yourself the most content if you couldn't fail, if you couldn't possibly fail, and if you didn't care what anyone else thought, especially if they thought it was a crazy idea. Extra points if you take that vision and imagine telling one of your friends or anyone, and think about what they might say, and then think about how they might try and guide you, and tell, oh, that's kind of risky for somebody your age, or that's not really what somebody would do now normally, would it, or whatever. And then think about what you would tell back to them. Kind of like, well, that this is really important to me, that this is really very fulfilling to me, that it's none of your business. You can pick whatever response you want, but I would suggest that the one that's more truly fulfilling to you will probably be the one, A, to most convince them, and also to most encourage you. So that's it for the evening. Please remember the war in Ukraine, war in Israel and Palestine. Just a lot of stuff going on in Africa as well, and just a lot of things in the world are kind of a mess right now. So ukr7.com, place where you can get some donation links, World Central Kitchen, wck.org. If you listen to me regularly, you know these places well by now. If not, check them out. Especially World Central Kitchen operates around the world, anywhere there's a disaster, not necessarily just in war zones. Actually, Ukraine was the first time that I believe they worked in a war zone. So there's a lot of good things, but remember the most important part, we talk about often, one of the best ways to care for yourself is to care for others. And especially if you don't have money to donate to somebody right now, or you want to donate locally, that's great. If you don't have any money at all, just thinking outside yourself and putting yourself in someone else's shoes, just saying hi to them on the street, just being nice to them, just making the world a little bit better place, even if it's for 5 seconds in your little 3 feet of square area, you're walking down the sidewalk, somebody drops something, say, hey, excuse me, you dropped this, pick it up. Just make them smile. That's what will change the world. As always, thank you for stopping by. If you found something interesting and useful, please pass it along. Please hit that like button. If not, please drop me a comment as to what you'd like to hear. Have a great week. Remember to live the life that you dreamed of, because that's the path to true contentment. Love and encouragement to everyone. See you next week on 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com. Thank you.